Now, I got to be honest. It's been a while since I've had to talk about Portugal. Remember the old pigs nation? Pigs. Portugal. Was it Portugal, Italy, Greece? I don't think of all of them. I used to know them by heart. Can't even think of them all now. Yeah, Greece, Italy, Portugal, Ireland, I think. Was Ireland the other I? Anyways. It's amazing how something will come up. Oh my gosh, they're in deep trouble. And then it just goes away for a little while. They're out of the news. Everything, oh, that little bailout must have worked. Hadn't heard. I haven't had to mention Portugal in like, 2, almost 3 years now. They must be in perfectly fine condition. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's incorrect. That is incorrect. First Italy, zero hedge, of course. First Italy, now Portuguese banks. My favorite guys over at Zero Hedge. I want to thank you personally for using my favorite mainstream media, mainstream economist, mainstream propagandist term. I mean my favorite. First Italy, now Portuguese banks, unexpectedly need a taxpayer bailout. Well, hold on, didn't they do bail-ins and they need a bailout? Hold on. Wait, no. Let me read into this. Last December 30th, creditors in Portugal's Novo Banco received a very unpleasant parting present to 2015. Hold on, last December 30th. What was that, 2014? Anyways, very unpleasant parting present to 2015, which is a bail-in which sent their bonds crashing from just shy of par to barely above worthless. It was almost 100, or 100 pennies, 100 cents to the dollar, almost on par. It was in the 90s, down to 14. So literally not 100 cents on the dollar, 14 cents on the dollar is what happened there. As a reminder, Novo Banco was the good bank, forged from the ashes of Banco Espirito Santo, which had to be bailed out by the state in August of 2014. The idea was to sell Novo Banco to pay for the cost of the bailout, but the auction process eventually floundered amid turmoil in Chinese markets. Oh, yeah, blame the Chinese markets. It floundered from turmoil in the Chinese markets. And it says at least 2 of the potential bidders, by the way, were Chinese. And uncertainty about whether this good bank would in fact need more capital given the elevated levels of NPLs already on its books. NPL, non-performing loans. Then last November, the ECB told Novo it would need to raise some $1.4 billion in fresh capital, which the bank initially said would come from asset sales. That's funny. I love when banks talk about assets. Oh, you mean like the assets that are sitting on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet right now to the tune of $4.5 trillion? Those assets, you mean the stinking, rotting pieces of garbage like these bonds here? 100 cents on the dollar? Nope, they're worth 14 cents. But what did the Federal Reserve do? All of these assets you guys have on your books, non-performing loans, we'll call those assets, and we'll even pay you 100 cents on the dollar. I've said this a million times. And the Federal Reserve paid these banks for this rotten, steaming pile of garbage. I mean, you couldn't even put the word asset in the same room as this garbage, these mortgage-backed securities and stuff. And they gave them 100 cents on the dollar. Now the Federal Reserve sitting on our balance sheets, all the money was paid back. I don't know what you're complaining about. The money, the banks paid the money back. Really? Then how is the Federal Reserve sitting on $4.5 trillion? Oh, that's right. You just said it. The banks paid us all back. That's because the Federal Reserve gave them, just handed them piles to the tune of trillions, $4.5 trillion. Here you go. Yep, they paid it back. How the hell did they pay it back if you gave them literally $4.5 trillion? Well, they didn't just give it to us. We sold off some assets to the Federal Reserve. That's interesting. I've never heard of a company, bank, or any financial institution selling something to the Federal Reserve. All it's supposed to do is print money. That's where our money comes from. Oh, that's right. Nobody on planet Earth would dare buy such pieces of garbage, much less give you 100 cents on the dollar. But the Federal Reserve would. Oh, got it now. So that's how they did it. Yeah, exactly. So on the other side of the pond, Portugal, ECB told them they would need to raise some $1.4 billion in fresh capital, which the bank initially said would come from asset sales. Yeah. A little over a month later, Portugal's central bank, think about our Federal Reserve, that's theirs, central bank, essentially just gave up. On December 29th, the bank announced it was transferring $2 billion in NB senior notes back to Banco Espirito Santo, which, like a ghost skyscraper in China, is set for demolition. In other words, Novo Banco plugged the $1.4 billion hole by essentially declaring $2 billion in bonds null and void, and have a nice day. Fast forward 6 months later, and Novo Banco is set to be the gift that keeps on giving. Even more terrible news. According to the Financial Times, Portuguese banks, already undercapitalized and loaded with bad debt, just like our banks were, just like the example I gave you, are bracing for even more heavy losses from Lisbon's so far unsuccessful attempts to sell Novo Banco. Maybe you guys could just sell that piece of garbage to your Federal Reserve Central Bank, which I don't know what name it is, just Portugal Central Bank. Same thing, owned by the same club. Just sell the whole thing to them. Or you can't offload your garbage to them like we did, and then their balance sheet can pop up to, in this case, you want $2 billion on top of their balance sheet. You know, they'll give you 100%, 100 cents on the dollar. You can't lose if you're a banker. You can't lose. All we do as bankers is win. We win. You're foreclosed on? We win. You lost your job today? We win. Bonuses for everybody. So, estimates of the potential bill facing banks, which financed the resolution fund that bailed out Novo Banco in 2014, range from 2.9 billion to 3.9 billion euros. Some bankers are even doubtful that the rescued lender will attract any acceptable offers, leading to its possible breakup or liquidation. Maybe we will we will see the first case of a bad bank squared, in which would be hardly surprising considering Italy is about to bail out its already repeatedly bailed out banking sector again. According to the Financial Times, the sale of Novo Banco is among critical decisions that will shortly determine the future shape of Portugal's banking industry, which the International Monetary Fund has linked with the problems facing Italian lenders as among potential risks to global growth. It's not just the tragic ghost of Novo Banco that is haunting Portugal, and the rest of Europe for that matter. Lisbon and EU authorities are locked in tough negotiations over plans to recapitalize state-owned, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Caixa Geral de Depósitos, Portugal's largest bank, with conflicting estimates of its capital needs ranging from about 2 billion to 5 billion euros. The Bank of Portugal and Lisbon's 8-month-old anti-austerity government are also calling for a systemic solution to deal with more than 30 billion euros in bad debts and problem assets adding to other calls for public bailouts of troubled EU banks. Here we go again. I thought we only had to do this once. 2008, 8 had the problem, 9 we got the bailout. We then increased the Federal Reserve balance sheet out of control. We then did $80 billion a month mortgage buybacks, quantitative easing 1, quantitative easing 2, quantitative easing 3, QE4 kind of, right? I mean, what the hell's going on here? And they did it too. And not only did they do it, we did it ourselves here and then gave them some too. Because, they said we're interconnected. It's a global system now. So if we can't just bail out our banks, we got to help them too. Because some of those banks have companies here on our soil, and some of ours here are over there too. So we kind of just got to bail each other out while bailing ourselves out simultaneously. But hold on. We're going to do it again, apparently, aren't we? And he says, but wait, there's more. In a recent report, Barclays estimated that Portuguese lenders could need up to $7.5 billion to resolve a systemic banking risk that was bringing the country under close market scrutiny. In other words, just like Italy unexpectedly needs a 50 billion euro bailout to start, suddenly Portugal also needs a 7.5 billion to start of a bailout. And as the Financial Times adds, investors feel the capital needs of banks could further burden the public finances of a struggling country already facing potential EU sanctions for failing to meet deficit targets. Actually, judging by historic precedents, fear is not the right word for what investors feel when it comes to taxpayer bailouts. Quote, some banks are in need of a large capital injection, said Antonio Garcia Pascual, chief European economist with Barclays. This means any material losses from the sale of Novo Banco could end up having to be met by the sovereign, as the capacity of Portuguese banks to absorb them is rather limited, end quote. And when Antonio says the sovereign, he means the taxpayers. Meanwhile, Eduardo Stock da Cunha, Novo Banco's outgoing chief executive, is already setting the stage for the doomsday scenario should his bank not get the taxpayer funding, and has warned of potential big losses on the sale, drawing a comparison with Millennium BCP, Portugal's largest listed bank, whose shares have dropped more than 60% alone in this year, and which has a market value of just over $1 billion, euros that is. Quote, Portugal has to be realistic about Novo Banco when BCP is trading at a price to book value of 0.4, and Southern European banks in general at 0.5, said a Lisbon banking analyst. In other words, while Italy debates whether or not to be brave enough and ask Germany to greenlight a much-needed 50 billion euro bailout, little Portugal may steal all of its glory, and in the process unleash the latest, if not last, wave of taxpayer bailouts across Europe all over again. So I'm going to be, kind of play devil's advocate. They already did it once, bailouts. We did it too. This is going to be the second time. Japan as well. Japan's in trouble too. They're talking about helicopter money for everybody over there. If it didn't work the first time, and we were promised it would, our national debt in this country went from 9 point something trillion to now almost 20 trillion, 19.3 trillion. All in the span of 8 years. All in the span of this whole bailout stuff. Are you telling me we're going to need another one? A second one and then a third one? Oh, no third one. Just the second one. But hold on. You said no. It's only this one the first time. Now you're saying no. We need another one. But it's only going to be this one. And I'm going to end this video by saying this phrase in the exact wording of George Bush, Dodo Bird, son of Papa Bush. Screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice. Well,